When I put the words classical music and dance together, the thing you are most likely to think about is ballet. The activity where, as Robin Williams once put it, men wear pants so tight you can tell what religion they are. Well, I'm here today to talk to you about classical music and dance without ever using the word ballet at all. And that's because classical music and dance have much more fundamental things in common than the ballet. Let me explain. Music, most places you find it on our planet, is closely bound up with dance. I mean, crikey, the words music and dance are literally the same word in many cultures. And there's an obvious physical reason for that. Music makes us move all sorts of bits of our bodies, our heads, our toes, our fingers, our lips, our knees, our feet, without us even realising it. You don't need to push the concept much further to see how you end up with dancing. However, classical music has a much more reserved, restrained attitude to dance. And that's particularly true when you think about audiences of classical music, probably the most physically restrained audience of any music. Which is odd because when you look at it closely, classical music owes a lot of its origins to dance. I'm not just talking about your passe-pieds, pavans or passacaglias, that's a tongue twister nightmare if ever there was one, but I'm also talking about your waltzes, gavottes, or sarabons, or courants, bourrées, minuets, chacons, or allemands, polkas, polonaises, or mazurkas. It's fascinating how many of these generic classical pieces owe their origins to specific dancers. There's a simple reason behind this. The dance reveals the rhythmic identity of the music, the skeleton that holds the entire body of music together. For example, the waltz is a 3-step dance with the lead beat on the first beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A gavotte, a 2 or 4-step dance.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And you also get an impression of the speed of the music, not just its metre. So jigs are often fast, sarabands slow and stately. So the origins of most early forms of classical music come from dancers. But it gets even more interesting because there was one place and one time where these early forms came together in a way that would have an immense effect on classical music. And to understand that, we need to travel back in time to one of the most powerful monarchs in history, Louis XIV, the Sun King. Welcome, bienvenue to France. It's 1535 and we're in the court of Louis XIV, Louis XIV, the Sun King. That's Versailles, flowery gardens and all the rest. This was the high point of the French monarchy, one of the most long-lived and successful monarchs in European history. And you see, the thing was, Louis XIV loved, and I mean loved, dancing. That meant whole evenings were arranged with music and dancing centre stage. The composer and conductor for these events was a man called Lully. Now, this is a composer famous for dying for his art. Literally, Lully used a staff to keep rhythm for the musicians, which he presumably could bang quite hard because one day he banged it rather too hard on his own foot, which grew septic and killed him a few days later. Work-related accident, I hope health and safety were informed. But back to 16th century France and the dancing. You see, these musical programmes would work in sections. Start with a medium piece in 4/4 time, then a slower one, or whatever. These programmes came to be known as suites, and by the Baroque period, we find these suites played now just for the music. And gradually, one particular form of suite came to take prominence over all the rest, and that was, of course, the symphony. A suite with 4 movements, instantly recognisable by their rhythmic character, i.e. a first movement, medium fast, a second slow movement, a third, a literal dance, and the fourth, a very fast finale. These original dance antecedents are particularly obvious in the case of the third movement of a symphony, the minuet trio. The minuet part is, of course, an actual dance, a 3-step, moderately paced dance. Dance forms an important cornerstone in the construction of the edifice of classical music, and an often overlooked cornerstone. Indeed, you sometimes get the impression classical music is a bit embarrassed about dance. As I said earlier, no other genre of music, be it rock, jazz, pop, rhythm and blues, hip hop, whatever, no other genre of music keeps its performers and its audience so relatively physically caged. I'm a real believer in actually going to classical concerts. Live classical music is no static beast, it's constantly on the go. Watch a full symphony orchestra in action and you'll see a celebration of rhythm everywhere. And I mean see, not hear. A section lifting their instruments together, ready to play, the uniform rise and fall of violin bows. To see an orchestra in action gives an excellent visual reference for the music itself. Now look at the person at the centre of this musical maelstrom, the conductor, numero uno no doubt. If you want to understand how classical music and dance have remained so separate, ask yourself, how come he's the only one that's allowed to dance?